Hello, and welcome to this webinar entitled Getting Sales Recruitment Right, to Roleplay or Not to Roleplay. Today we're going to look at the sales roleplay and the value that this recruitment method adds in helping you to identify the top sales stars from your pool of candidates. Those of you who have watched previous webinars in this series will recognise this table. I want to highlight the predictive power of the sales roleplay, which is described here as a job preview exercise. Such an exercise asks a candidate to demonstrate a key element of the role. In the case of sales, asking someone to sell you something fits that criteria. Other types of job preview exercise include in-trays, analysis exercises, and presentations. When deciding whether a role play is relevant, you need to consider, does it provide a realistic job preview? I.e., does it require the candidate to undertake tasks that are similar to what they would be expected to do in the role? For me, that's why a role play is so good for sales jobs, because you can ask the candidate to sell to a customer and then observe how they do it. As I've highlighted before, and as you'll see now, job preview exercises alongside ability tests are the single best predictor of the candidate's performance in the role. However, unlike ability tests, which are used by around half of all companies that are looking to recruit, job preview exercises are used by less than 30% of businesses. So why are job preview exercises not used more widely? And if we choose to use them, how can we ensure that they are as predictive as possible? Well, recruiters don't like them because they're seen as time-consuming, resource-intensive, and not always reflective of the real job. The most common reason I hear from candidates is simply that they don't like doing role plays. People often say, oh, I'd never do it like that in real life. Let's deal with the recruiter's views first. In comparison to just doing an interview, then yes, a sales role play will require more resources. For example, additional assessors and meeting rooms. To do a role play properly, you need two people, one to play the customer, the other to act as observer and assessor. However, a good role play doesn't need to last a long time. I've designed role plays for telesales positions that have lasted no more than 8 minutes, which reflects the nature and duration of a typical telesales call. The other criticism of sales role plays is that they're not reflective of the real job. This really depends on whether you buy an off-the-shelf role play or choose to get a consultancy to design one for you. If you go off the shelf, you can still get a very good scenario that assesses the key sales skills you're looking for, but it may not appear as relevant to your candidates as a bespoke scenario that has been created for you, that references your company, your products, your customers, and real problems and challenges to overcome. So, onto the candidate feedback. The criticism that I hear most consistently from candidates is that they feel uncomfortable being asked to perform in a fictitious setting. But remember why we're doing this. The sales roleplay is a powerful predictor of performance. Really, I would expect a good candidate to relish the chance to show off their sales skills. And aren't the best salespeople really performers at heart? And as a candidate, finally, I'd want to know that the hiring company was using the most predictive tools available to them in order to determine my suitability for the role. Why are sales roleplays such good predictors of performance? Well, I've previously introduced the behavioural iceberg as a way of understanding people's behaviours and the elements that determine these behaviours. Whereas an interview is a self-report, where candidates are able to promote their achievements, to sell themselves to you, and may not be inclined to disclose their weaknesses, a sales roleplay offers no hiding place. It allows you to directly observe an individual's sales technique, what they do well, and where they might struggle. So for example, if they're not good at closing a sale, you'll see it. In terms of the behavioural iceberg, the interview enables us to tap into a person's know-how, their understanding of how to undertake the key aspects of a role. A sales role play allows us to assess the can-do, whether they can demonstrate the behaviours required to do the key tasks effectively. So how do we ensure that the sales role play is as predictive as possible? Well, if you have watched the previous webinars in this series, you'll see there are some themes. Which exercise you choose is critical. The scenario needs to be relevant and to assess the sales skills you require for the role. The scenario should be realistic, but easy enough for someone from outside of your company or your industry to understand. Remember, we're not assessing their industry knowledge in the role play, although you might choose to do that during the interview. In the role play, you're trying to ascertain their sales skills. At this point, you should consider if you want to use an off-the-shelf exercise or have one designed specifically for your business. I mentioned the need for two people to be involved in running a sales role play. The role player doesn't need to be a professional actor, but they do need to be well briefed and to understand how they should respond to the different approaches that candidates may take. The assessor also needs to be well briefed and to ensure that they administer the role play to each candidate in a consistent manner, following the instructions provided. During the role play, their role is to observe and record the interactions as fully as possible, and so they also need to be fully engaged and attentive to what is going on. After the role play, it's their responsibility to evaluate and score the candidate's performance fairly and objectively. Finally, the facilities provided are key. If you recognise the value of doing a role play exercise and have invested in it, then it's important to ensure that it's properly resourced. For example, the candidate will need a quiet space to prepare, and so a meeting room will be required. Different role plays often require different resources, but you may need to provide flip charts, laptops, or other accessories. I often come across companies who are unable to provide a laptop for half an hour, which to me just seems crazy given the amount of investment they've already made in deciding that a sales role play should be part of their recruitment process. So, let's recap. When conducting a sales role play, there are some key ways you can enhance its predictive power. To clearly define the key sales skills required in the role and identify an appropriate exercise that reflects these. To properly train your assessors and role players so that they are confident and capable. To give candidates a consistent experience by ensuring your role players keep to the script and your assessors provide the same experience to each candidate. To allocate sufficient time to each role play so that you're able to thoroughly explore each candidate's skills and experiences. To ensure that you're scoring the candidate's sales skills rather than their knowledge of your company or the industry that you operate in, and in doing so provide a fair and objective assessment of their performance. Thank you very much for watching. If you'd like to know more, then please feel free to get in touch with us. There is more information on our website, bluejam.co.uk.